Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Stotram. Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darsitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Stavaram Jangamam Yaptam, Yatkim Chissacharacharam, Tatpadam Darsitam Yena, Sri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapiyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darsitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Namadeva Deva. Hari Om. Vidyaranya is analyzing the Chandogya Upanishad statement Sadeva Saumya Idamagramasit Ekameva Advitiyam. So after analyzing the Ekameva Advitiyam, and he is looking at Sadeva Saumya Idam Agra Asit. So Asit term he took it last time and said Asit also means existence and Sat also existence. So either there are two existences in the statement which violates Ekameva Advitiyam, or you're repeating yourself. It's called Punarupti Dosham. So it is an error of repetition. So if you either way, there is a problem there. So if there is an objector objecting this way, an imaginary objector, he addresses that. He says, we normally use in transactional, in the Vyavahara, we repeat some things, although it's not really implied. So there is only one existence, there are no two existences. So, Kala Bhave Punaruktihi Kala Vasanaya Vitaha. No, he did 37, I guess. Kartavyam Kurute Vakyam. We normally use, hey, he did what need to be done. So we are repeating the doing two times. Vakyam Brute. He spoke, the speech is spoken. Dharyasya Dharanam. Dharanam is also burden. Dharanam is also means born. So it is, he is taking the weight of that as weighing a double word. Burden is born. Ichyadi Vasana Avishtam. Like that, this is the usage is there in the lokam, in the transactional world. Therefore, since Sat existence was existing is not really repetition, it's only a communication that is valid. That's how he justified the scriptural statement. Now the second statement is Yatha Saumya, no, not Yatha Saumya, Sadeva Saumya Idamagramasit. So statement is Sat was there before creation. That was the statement. Now the question is, where was this Sat? And before involves time. So before what? So before means the existence and the creation came later. So the time was there to say there was a before. So how did they, therefore you have already kalam. Kalam is the time factor. So the time factor was there and existence factor was there. So if you say that time was there before, because the statement is idam agra asid, before creation there was. So before is a concept of time. That means time was there before creation itself. And therefore time was there and existence was there. So therefore you have a duality. So how can you say it's only one? And second question is, where was that creation? Idam agra asid. It was there before. Means it was there means it was existing somewhere. So question of space and time becomes a problem. So space should also be there for existence to exist. Because it has to exist somewhere. Because somewhere creation occurs. So these are the two objections that arise in terms of space-wise and the time-wise. The time and the space must have been there before creation. That means your Advaitam is in trouble. Advaita means there cannot be anything other than existence. So if you say that, then how do you account that? So before creation, before word is being addressed in the sloka 18. Kala bhave pure chuktihi, kala bhave pure chuktihi, kala vasanaya yutam, sishyam pratyevate natra, shyam pratyevate natra, dvitiyam nahi sakyate. Itiyam nahi sakyate. Together. Kala bhave pure chuktihi, kala vasanaya yutam, sishyam pratyevate natra, dvitiyam nahi sakyate. So kala abhave pure chuktihi. So the abhava means even though there was no time, kala abhava. Abhava means non-existence of the time was there before. There was no time at all. But pure he iti uktihi. In the statement, existence alone was there before. Before is used in the scripture, uses a before, which is a concept of time, has been used in the scripture. So scripture implies that there was a time. At the same time, you say there was nothing other than existence. And if you ask that, kala vasanaya yutam, so kala vasanaya yutam, if the student asks that question, says sishyam pratyevate natre, if an objector makes says there was a time, says no, because the student, it is a teaching to a student, and the teaching is the student wants to know what was there before creation. He wants to know. Was the creation, when the creation started, because creation has a beginning, so creation has started, so what was there before creation? So his mind is used to understanding before and after, and to him, to explain it only, the scripture is coming down and compromising the word and using that before creation there was only existence and nothing else. So therefore, kala vasanaya yutam sishyam, the student who is used to kala vasana means time concept is used in his transactional world, and for him this teaching is going on, and therefore the scripture has to come down and compromise in order to teach. So that is this answer here in terms of what it is. Therefore, pura is used not an implication that there was a time before creation, but time itself is a part of creation only. And we can say it is only for purpose of teaching, called the upayam. Upayam means for convenience, the teacher has to use that. Teacher means scripture has to use it. Sishyam pratyevate natra. So therefore, tena atra Dvitiyam nahi sakyate. So therefore, atra, there before creation, in talking about in this statement, dvitiyam nahi sakyate, there cannot be any possibility of duality. Why there cannot be any possibility of duality? Question is, just because he says this, do we accept it? Is a question. Why? What's wrong with time to be there also? So time, does it exist or not? We are talking about non-existent. We are not talking about non-existent time. We are talking about existent time also. So time also exists. So existence is there in the form of time, and existence is there outside the time also. So now, is there a difference in the existence itself? Can you differentiate the existence in the time versus existence outside the time? You cannot, because there cannot be any. So from the existence points, it is ekameva advitiyam, one without a second. And time and space are only creation afterwards comes into picture. So scripture cannot be compromised. Therefore, there cannot be concept of time also in the creation, in the pure existence. Time is also part of creation. Interesting thing is, scripture does not say I am created. In this sequence, if you look at the Taittiriya Upanishad, Atmava Are says, Tasmatva etasmat Atmana Akasha Sambhutaha. From Atma Akasha, space came. Akasha Vayuhu, Vayu Agnihi, Agnihi Apaha, Abja Prithvi, Prithivya Voshadayaha, Voshadebhyonnam, Annat Purusha. So, in the sequence of all this creation up to the human beings and all that, plants, kingdom and the human being, there is no question of time specified anywhere. So, where is the time created? So in the Bible it says the sun was created as a third day. Third day, Lord created. First day is so many things, and third day Lord created the sun. So one fellow, smart Alec, asks, how do you know the day and night when sun was not there? Until third day means the first day was over, second day is over. So where is the third day? How can we know that third day when the sun was not there? So Swami Chidananda explained that in the sense that the third day means third in the sequence of creation, time concept came into picture. So time concept comes when there are two sequential things only. That means I have one and I have two, and there are two sequence, and therefore gap between the two sequence is the concept of time. So origin of the time involves two sequential events. If I have only one, there cannot be a time. So Einsteinian definition is the gap between two sequential events. That's Einsteinian definition. But where the problem is, how do you know? How do you know there are sequential events? So Einstein has to say that there is an observer observing event 1 and event 2. And observer should not be changing with the event 1 and event 2. So he should remain the same and observe event 1 and event 2 and look at the gap, and this is there is a time, right? What about the observer? Observer was there before event 1. So creation involves conscious entity has to be there before time concept even comes into picture. Follow now? And the conscious entity has to be existent entity, not non-existent entity. We have thinking about existent consciousness only, observing time event 1 and event 2. So therefore, existent consciousness has to be beyond time. Because you can see that's what essentially a scriptural statement is logical also, even according to our concept of relativity. Now, the same concept occurs in the Big Bang theory, also in the creation. Says, when did the Big Bang occur? So, if you know the Big Bang theory, the galaxies are moving apart, and looking at the backwards, so in terms of time-wise, if you interpolate the time backwards, all come back to one central point. Because where from the observer point, the galaxies are going further and further away, further galaxies are going faster and faster. That's how the understanding of the movement of the galaxies. So where do they, when you extrapolate backwards, it meets at the point where observer is. Whoever is observed, that's where it is. So if somebody else, people say new galaxies are being created. Who is saying? A fellow observer sitting in the earth, looking at the billions and billions of light years is coming now, and says now the new galaxies are created. It's not that they are creating now. Information of the light past from the billions of years is reaching now here. The fellow sitting there, he will think that we are getting created now. Right? If you know the logic of the science itself, because what we are looking at into the space is we are seeing this past. 4 light, if the nearest star is 4 light years. So when I say I am seeing the star, it's not seeing now. The light that traveled 4 years ago is coming now and seeing that. So what is now we will see only after 4 years. So in the same way, one has to be careful. So space and time are a problem even in the Big Bang. And where did the Big Bang occur? A Big Bang occurred at one point, but where? Space-wise where? Time-wise when? Even though we can extrapolate some billions of years right now, but from the time itself starts with the Big Bang only. And space also occurs with the Big Bang only. So the Big Bang occurred everywhere where there is no space or time. Because wherever the observer is, that's where the Big Bang occurred. You follow now? So the question of the observation, that means the conscious entity, wherever it is there. And conscious entity has to be everywhere because it is not limited by time and space. So here we have to understand when the scripture is telling us and teaching us, a methodology is adopted for the student to understand in terms of the concept that he is familiar with. But whole the teaching and the teacher are within the transactions only. From the point of absolute Brahman, there is no teacher nor the student also. From pure existent point, there is neither teacher nor a student. Only from the relative point, there is all. From the absolute point, Brahman alone is. From the absolute point, there is no ignorance also. There is no ajnanis, there is no jnanis. But all only in the transactional world where I think I am only a local Jiva, fellow who is thinking that I am local Jiva wants to know, because he already misunderstood that I am only located at some place because I am conscious entity and I am existent entity. Everybody knows that. But I am here, identifying with the body, mind and intellect. So I am localizing myself with the identification with the local equipments and say I am here and therefore I am not there and there is other world and so the world is created by God and all other things come into picture. And that's where the problem is. To him who has already confused, the teaching scripture is only meant for that. So that's what is being analyzed in the next sloka. Chodyam va pariharo va, chodyam va pariharo va, kriyatam dvaita bhashaya, kriyatam dvaita bhashaya, advaita bhashaya chodyam, advaita bhashaya chodyam, nasti napi taduttaram, nasti napi taduttaram. Together, chodyam va pariharo va, kriyatam dvaita bhashaya, advaita bhashaya chodyam, nasti napi taduttaram. So, chodyam va pariharam va, the question and the answers, the objection and siddhantam is called in the methodology of our scriptures. Objection is called purvapaksha. Purvapaksha means a purvapaksha, an objection is called purvapaksha, and the one who is objecting is called a purvapakshi. He is not a bird, he is a purvapakshi. So purvapaksham. So the scripture says, hey, there is an objection here. and he raises an objection and Siddhantam. Siddhantam means an answer to the objection, because when I am proposing a new theory, I have to see what all the objections against possible objections, and I raise myself those objections and answer it, so that one who reads it has, even though he may not have objection, when he reads it, he says, yeah, that's true. What is the answer? So answer is also provided. So this methodology of teaching is done in the scriptures. So even in the methodology in terms of bhashyam, in terms of explanation, is objections and answers, sometimes counter objections and the answers. So this dialogue will go on in a scriptural way, so that when a student, he becomes crystal clear without any objections. Okay, all possible objections are already addressed in the bhashyas. So here, chodyam va pariharo va, the questions and the answers being given, kriyatam dvaita bhashaya, involves a duality. Whenever there is a question and an answer, there is already duality is implied. But that's only for communication and for understanding the absolute truth. Advaita bhashaya chodyam nasti napi taduttaram. From the point of absoluteness, there is neither a questioner nor an answer, nor the teacher who answers, and it is one without any second at all. So that is being addressed. So in the Shankaracharya, in the scripturals, one says bhava advaitam natu kriya advaitam. When I understand the Advaita, means that there is only one, that has to be understood through the mind. In the Kathopanishad, we are going to address that issue also, where the mind alone can understand it. But that is an understanding at the level. But at the transactional level, Kriya is not, the Advaitam cannot be at the transactional level. Transactional level is, your bank account is different from my bank account, even though everything is one and the same. The father is father, mother is mother, child is child, all friends, everything is according to the transactional world. There is no confusion there. Garbage is garbage, food is food. Just because I am an Advaitin, I am not going to eat garbage. Just because I am a scientist, I know it's electron, protons, neutrons, garbage is still garbage, and delicious food is delicious food, and one food is different from other food. Right? So, even though understanding of oneness that pervades everything is understood, at transactional level, still the enemy is enemy, friend is friend, and all that. So even the Krishna asks, left and right, every god has the instrument to make sure that people behave properly, policing. So Shankara says, bhava advaitam, have a clear understanding of Advaita, natu kriya advaitam, but not at the transactional level. Transactional level is, teacher is a teacher, student is a student, God is still God, and devotee is a devotee. There is no confusion there. A lot of people, criticisms of Advaita comes from the Advaita. One fellow asked me, everything is one, so drink some poison. Because poison is also Advaita. Why are you worried about it? So what should I tell? These are some of the discussions in the Advaita list. So what was there before is pure existent, which is of the nature of consciousness. And that is being emphasized again in the sloka 14. Tadastimita gambhiram, tadastimita gambhiram, na tejo na tamastatam, tejo na tamastatam, anakyamanabivyaktam, anakyamanabivyaktam, satkinchit avasishyate, kinchit avasishyate, together, tadastimita gambhiram, na tejo na tamastatam, anakyamanabivyaktam, satkinchit avasishyate. So what was there then? What was there then means before creation, Stimita Gambhiram. So there is absolute silence. There is no teaching, nothing of the sort, none of the anything that can be quantified, qualified. Pure existence alone was there. Na tejaha, na tamastatam. Neither there is a light nor darkness. You don't need a light to illumine the existence also. So, na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kutoya magnihi tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvavidam vibhati. So, I don't need this light to show this. But light indicates, says, I need a knowledge to reveal myself because I have ignorance. And that's what is the arati meant for. Arati involves, there's a karpuram, right? And the karpuram has a property, when it burns, it doesn't leave any residue. That means karpuram has a vasana, fragrance. So when it burns, the vasanas are burned, and in the burning of the vasanas, the Lord reveals himself. Lord is always there, but my ignorance gets covered. And that is the knowledge that reveals. So, tada stimita gambhiram, na tejaha, na tamasaha statam. So, there was neither tamastatam, neither the light nor darkness is pervading in the existence. So, in the existence, there is no ignorance or knowledge of things of any kind. It's pure consciousness alone of that. Sat Kinchit avasishyati. There is only Sat alone was there, pure existence alone was remaining without any qualifications. It is anakyam anabhivyaktam. It is without any names and forms. Even I cannot call it Advaita. I am only calling it Advaita, means non-dual. Because what I am seeing is duality, because in my transactions I am always transacting with the duality. The teaching is, it is non-dual because you are used to duality. Absolute truth is without any duality. So for a methodology, it says Advaitam. But even the Advaita itself drops out. Yato vacho Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. The speech cannot go there, neither the mind can go there. It just returns because it's not conceptualized, it cannot be objectified. It is that pure existence alone was there before, and it is sthimita gambhiram, absolute silence of that. So that's what with reference to the time he addressed. Now in the next sloka, we are talking about where does this existence exist. So these are methodological discussions in order to make sure that there has a crystal clear understanding about no other questions can be raised again. So that's what is the purpose of scriptures is. So we'll take 41 sloka. Nanu bhumyadikam abhut, nanu bhumyadikam abhut, paramanvantanasataha, paramanvantanasataha, katham te viyato sattvam, katham te viyato sattvam, buddhimarohatiti ched, buddhimarohatiti ched. Together, nanu bhumyadikam abhut, paramanvantanasataha, katham te viyato sattvam, buddhimarohatiti ched. So here this sloka starts with nanu. So nanu means objection. So there is an objection. So if you look into any bhashyas, they will write suddenly nanu will start. And it means he is now discussing some objection. But, means but or something. But how can it be? So here an objection being raised, that will be addressed later. And this objection comes from the Nayayikas. Nayayika is Nyaya Vaiseshikas. They are logicians. So they talk about logic, and logic has developed since it's a very, very ancient, but new logic was developed in 11th century. That is our new logic. Indian logic is extremely powerful actually. So here, Nanu, so Bhumi Adikam Ma Bhut. So for him, the Nyayikas, Nyaya Vaiseshikas, Nyaya and Vaiseshika, they are two philosophers, but they are somewhat parallel, so we put together or call them as a Tarkikas. Tarkika means logicians, and they talk only mostly logic based, although they have scriptures and they have also fundamental materials also, elements also, dravyams are there, and he objects against the Advaita philosophy and says Bhumi Adikam. Bhumi means after Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi, up to that 4 elements, and for him they can reduce them into Paramanu, means he has atoms. So I can keep dividing each one into until I reach one atom that will be indivisible for him. So the whole of those from the matter that he can think of, except the space, can be reduced to atom, therefore they can be dismissed. So he says, Nanu, Bhumyadikam ma bhut. So, Paraman Vantanashataha. So I can destroy, Bhumi is not there, the Vayu is not there, Agni is not there, Jalam is not there, because I can reduce them everything into Anu. Whereas I cannot do that for the Akasha, for the space. Now, where does this existence existed? It has to have exist in some space. So space should be there before the existence itself, for the existence to exist. So whether it is they are together existing, existence and the space, or existence should be occupying in some space. So where there has to be somewhere existence. How can there be anything without having a space? If something is there, then space is there. That's his logic. So for him, space has to be all eternal. So according to Nayayika positions, space cannot be negated. So katam te viyataha asatvam buddhim arohati chet. So how can you dismiss space and say only existence alone was there before? Because existence has to exist in some space. So you cannot dismiss the space and say existence was alone there, because you dismissed sunyam like this. Non-existence, but I can dismiss your existence also, because existence has to exist in some place. Then there is no more Dvaitam, because you have space and then you have existence. So therefore, if you ask Katam te viyataha asatvam, the space cannot be negated. Negated means dismiss, that it's not existing. Buddhim arohati chet. In case if you raise that kind of an objection, I have an answer for you. So here objection is from the Nayayika, you cannot dismiss everything. You can dismiss everything else, but not the space. So existence has to exist in some space, because there has to be, anything exists only in space, and therefore you cannot dismiss the space. And if you say like that, so viyatam asatvam katam te, if you say how can you dismiss the space as non-existing before the creation, if you say that, because the scripture says what? The tasmat atman akasha sambhava. From atma only the space has come. That means atma was there. Then where was the atma? Atma has to be existing. The consciousness existence, how can it exist without a space? So if such question is asked, the answer is given in the 42. So that was the objection by the 41 is the objection by the Nayayikas. So how does this objection is he counter objection. If you are objecting, I will object you another way, because you are saying that the rest of it are you dismissing. What is dismissing? The Vayu, Agni, Apa, Prithvi Adi, you are dismissing. If you dismiss this, how can you say the space was there? Can you see the space without having the world? That's the question. Now this is a statement. Can I have presence of the space without having the objects? Atyantam. Okay, let's read that. 42. Atyantam nirjagad vyoma Acyantam nirjagad vyoma yatha te buddhimasritam tathaiva sannirakasham kuto nasrayate matim together. Acyantam nirjagad vyoma yatha te buddhimasritam tathaiva sannirakasham kuto nasrayate matim. Yatha acyantam nirjagat vyoma space te buddhihi asritam. So he says, because according to Nayayikas, he is dismissing everything else, and what is he left with? Akasha, which is Nityam for him. So space was there before all the time, Nityam. And if you can imagine without the presence of the world, the space, then I can also imagine the existence without the Akasha also. So this is an objection. If you can say, because Buddhim, te buddhim asritam, if you can imagine that there can be space without any objects in the world. So how do you define a space? Space is a distance between 2 points. A distance between two simultaneous observations, to be precisely. Two simultaneous, not sequential. Sequential becomes a time, simultaneous becomes a space. Okay, so movement in time becomes a space, movement in space becomes a time also. So that's why space-time becomes relatively related. So therefore, I need two reference points to define the space. And if I don't have any reference point has to be related to the Jagat, the world only, because two objects has to be there to identify some points. And therefore, how, if you can say that, because according to your model, space exists without all these things, to start with Nityam, if you say that, then I can say also exists, Sat can exist without Akasha also. So that is the counter objection to put him in the place first, because I can use the same argument that you have. So that is this sloka here. Acyantam nirjagad vyoma yatha te buddhim asritam. So in yatha acyantam, just as the absolute, the space can exist without nirjagat, without the world. If you can appreciate te buddhim asritam, if you can grasp that the existence of the space without any world, then tatha eva, similarly, nirakasham sat matim. Without this space, I can think of the existence also. Now let's ask this question. When we go to deep sleep state, is there a space and time? So we have the experience-wise, we don't need to analyze from the logically even, experientially also, when I go to deep sleep state, where am I? I don't know. How long I sleep also, I don't know. I get up, oh my God, I slept that long. I'm already late for my office. And all that only when I get up and look at the watch, then I say the time. But during the deep sleep state, neither the space nor the time is there. Therefore, but I was there, sleeping very well. So I can be there without the concept of space and time in the deep sleep itself. Then I am existent entity, I am a conscious entity, conscious of non-existence of everything else, right? Because I don't know anything else, I was there. So, say, in the Viveka Chudamani, question is asked, a student says, you say nothing is there, then how do you know I am there? Says you are contradicting yourself. When you can say nothing was there, that means you have the knowledge of nothingness was there. That means you was there. So you are contradicting yourself, and that's when you say nothing was there. I don't know anything, but I slept very well. So very statement implications that your existence is beyond the time and concept itself. So therefore, here is objecting to the Nayayika's position because he has Akasha, which is without the world also. Therefore, if you can imagine the world without without Akasha, I can imagine the conscious existence without the Akasha also. And he has in the Nayayika position is that space cannot be seen. He has the position also. Not only Akasha was existing, but it cannot be seen. I mean, like any science also, you cannot see space by itself. I need an object to specify. But he makes axiomatic statement that space was there eternally present all the time. So here he is going to talk about his position also. One more sloka. Nirjagad vyoma drushtam chet Nirjagad vyoma drushtam chet Prakashatamasi vina Prakashatamasi vina Quadrushtam kinchate pakshe Quadrushtam kinchate pakshe Na pratyaksham viyat khalu Na pratyaksham viyat khalu. Together. Nirjagad vyoma drushtam chet Prakashatamasi vina Quadrushtam kinchate pakshe Na pratyaksham viyat khalu. So, nirjagat vyoma drashtam chet. In case you can see, as you say, you can see the existence of the space without the world. Prakasha tamasi vina, without any light or darkness illuminating it, if you can say that. Quadrashtam says where you can see it. How do you can see? If you can say that, where can you see it? So it cannot be. Essentially, if you can't see it, then how do you ask me to say that where is the existence itself? So where and what cannot be answered for you also, because according to you, the space cannot be seen. So in case if you say I noticed it, where can you notice the space without the presence of the world? And that's up to Quadrashtam is one statement. Kincha te pakshe na pratyaksham viyat kalo. On the other hand, te pakshe, according to your own theory, kincha na pratyaksham viyat kalo. Viyat is the space cannot be na pratyaksham, cannot be perceived. Even according to your own philosophy, space cannot be perceived. Therefore, existence of the space is only your proposition. Not that there is something to say it. No one can see it according to you. Without the world, no one can see the space. And even your own theory, the space cannot be perceived. Then therefore, at the same time you say space is there. If you can say it, existence can be there without the presence of the space also. Space in fact comes from the existence. And best thing is, in the deep sleep state, you are there, Atma is there. That means self is there without having the space and time. That seems to be our day-to-day experience itself. Now the question is, how do we know that existence is? How can we find out? Without space and time, how can we know the existence? Because existence is nothing but God. Don't think that existence is something, your own self. So how do I know that existence can exist without space and time? This is answered because this is the statement, we're all looking for Brahman without understanding who the Brahman is, or we're looking for God, and if you say God has to appear, he has to appear in space and time only, right? Because after all, God cannot be with you. If you say, if I am seeing God, he has to appear and then he has to disappear also. Because somebody else will be asking for God. So, that means he has to appear in time and in space wise, because if he's all over I cannot see, he has to appear in space and time. So we are all looking for that kind of, oh, I saw the God and all that. Those are perceptions have to be dropped completely. That's only elementary. It's required up to you go beyond. Says that understanding, say then how do I know Brahman? This is the biggest problem for most of the seekers, because I say I don't know, I am still looking for it because we are objectifying the Brahman. We are still, I understand it's not an object, but still we are objectifying mentally or conceptually in our own mind. I am still looking for Brahman. When I say I have not realized means what? I realize I am existing, I realize I am not. I am still looking for something else other than myself. So it can never happen. That is the biggest hurdle for a seeker student, because he is longing for something that is other than himself. That is the problem. Here the Vidyaranya tells us it is not required. So here is very beautiful slokam here actually. Tadvastu suddham tu asmabhihi, tadvastu suddham tu asmabhihi, nischitairanubhuyate, nischitairanubhuyate, tushnim stitau na sunyatvam, tushnim stitau na sunyatvam, sunya buddhischu varjanaha, varjanam, sunya buddhischa varjanam. Together, sadvastu suddham tu tasmabhihi, nischitairanubhuyate, tushnim stitau na sunyatvam, sunya buddhischa varjanam. Suddham sadvastuhu. Sadvastuhu. Sadvastu is the absolute truth. That's pure existence which is absolute, which is Suddham. Suddham means there is nothing other than existence. So impurity, Suddham means purity. Impurity is something other than him, other than the original is impurity. So I have dirt on me means something other than me is deposited on me. That's called as dirt. So if I don't call my hand as a dirt because this is me only. So something other than me, we call it a dirt. So Suddham is pure Saddham. There is nothing other than Sat. Therefore, it is absolute, eternal, and infinite. That Sat Vastu, that absolute reality or existence. Tu asmabhihi, by us, nischitaihi anubhuyate. It is certainly experienced every day, every time, by all of us. As means here, by all of us. So all of us who are asking the question, we are experiencing, how do I see, where do I see this existence? It is experienced all the time by all of us. So there is never a time we are not experiencing it. Tushnim sitau sunyatvam sitau na sunyatvam sunya buddhischa varjanam. So tushni sitau, in the absence of existence, sunyatvam, sunyam, nothingness, yet non-existence, na sunya buddhehe. See here, sunya buddhi is the buddhi in the thought process, non-existence of the thoughts here as is interpreted, or non-existence of everything. That's a varjanam. Says it has to be removed. Non-absence of the thoughts or of the, say, what do I do? No, let me get simple picture. Say, I want to eliminate everything. I want to say pure existence because anything else is nama rupa. So if I try to eliminate not this, not this, not this, what is remaining is pure existence without anything. If I say that, so I can have that pure existence without the presence of any thoughts in my mind. That existence is, everybody sees, everybody experiences as in the deep sleep state at least. Because in the deep sleep state, everybody says, I am there. There are no thoughts of any kind because thoughts come only in the dream state and the waking state. But I am there, but I don't know anything. Because for buddhi to be there, thoughts have to be raised. So, non-existence of the thought does not negate the existence of the pure existence that I am. But I can be without the presence of any thoughts also. I can be there with the thoughts also. And therefore, pure existence is experienced by everybody, whether they are awake, whether they are dream state or in the deep sleep state. So there is never a time I have no experience of the existence because everybody knows I am there. So even in the pitch dark room, say, are you there? Yes, I am there. So how do you know? It's too dark. Still, I know I am there because my existence is not based on any perceptual data or thought process. I know I am, therefore I can think. Not that I think, therefore I am. Remember? Who is that guy? Descartes. Right? I think I am, therefore I am is his philosophy. Whereas I am, and many people refuse to think properly also. So I think, I don't think, but I am there. And that's what in the deep sleep state. So it's essentially, it is not the existence or non-existence does not need any thought process. Thoughts are there, I am there. Thoughts are not there, I am there. It's not the elimination of the thoughts for me to recognize I am there. So meditation is not the absence of thoughts, and meditation is in spite of the thoughts. So it is called Advaita. That's why it's called Advaita. Means in spite of the duality, one has to see non-duality. Non-duality in spite of duality. Not non-duality without duality. Follow? So therefore that's called Advaita. Therefore I can see with the mind only, with the thoughts or without the thoughts, and that existence does not require any thought process. It is not a thinking that I am existing. It's not a belief that I am existing. I am existing is a fact. It's not a, that's why the Advaita is not just a belief system or a religion even, because it is an absolute fact, because I exist. But what is scriptures is, I don't need even scripture to tell me that I exist. Scripture is useful only because I existing already. So it will be helpful for me. If I thought out my existence, scripture will have no meaning. So scripture is helpful. It doesn't tell me I am existent and a conscious entity. What it tells me is that existent consciousness that you are is infiniteness. Brahmasmi. You are infinite, because I am existent consciousness, but I take myself, I am only this. So scripture is only telling you, you are Anantam also. You are Sat Chit, I know. But Sat Chit as this body, mind, intellect. But I need scriptures to teach me, as a pramana is Tattvamasi. You are that. That means what I am rejecting right now is the whole world, I am that also. That means I am Anantam, because that is included in the Anantam. Anantam means infinite. That what is to be understood. So Sunyam here is, Sunya Buddhi is absence of the thoughts, non-existence. And in the non-existence where there are no thoughts, you cannot perceive anything. But existence has to be there to know that there is non-existence. As in the deep sleep state where I am conscious of the presence of or the absence of everything, but I know I am there also. But what is not there in the deep sleep state is the mind is not there. Therefore, the knowledge of my existence is not there in the mind. For knowledge to take place, mind is required. For any knowledge to take place, mind is required. So, absence of the mind is lack of knowledge of that. Now, the question we ask is, does Jnani sleep or not? Now, what happens when Jnani goes to deep sleep state? He has no thoughts. Is he ignorant then? Because the mind is not there. Jnani sleeps as Jnani only, Ajnani sleeps as Ajnani, because the mind has Jnanam or Ajnanam, that mind is folded. At that level, pure Brahman alone is there as witnessing consciousness. Neither Jnanam nor Ajnanam only. Okay, that has to be correctly understood here. Okay, Sloka 45, continuation of this argument. Sadbuddhirapi nasti, sadbuddhirapi nasti, mastvasya swaprabhatvataha, mastvasya swaprabhatvataha, nirmanaskatva sakshitvat, nirmanaskatva sakshitva sanmatram sagunam nunam sanmatram sugamam nunam sanmatram sugamam nunam sadbuddhirapi nasti mastvasya swaprabhatvatah nirmanaskatva sakshitvat sanmatram sugamam nunam. A little bit difficult. Sadbuddhi api ched na asti. Sadbuddhi. So even the existence requires some kind of thought process. If you say like that, it's not true. So here an objection says, for you to say that sunyam, non-existence, it says non-existence has to be established by the thought process. If you say, even the existence also requires some kind of thought process. How do you know that you exist? So I should think that I exist. Do I have to think like that? Existence is required a thought process. He says that's not true. Sat buddhihi, the thought of perceiving myself as the existence is na asti chet. If it is not there, ma astul. You see, if there are no thoughts, how can there be existence? If you ask, says let there not be thoughts. Who wants thoughts? Ma asti. He says let there be so. Ma says ma astu, let that be, because asya swaprabhatvatah, because it is self-shining. I don't need a thought to know that I am there. I am there without the thought also. Why? It is swaprabhatvatah. It is self-shining. Tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. Because you are the light of consciousness and you illuminate even the thought also. And thought doesn't need to illuminate you. I need a thought to know this you. So it's not a thinking process. I need a thought to eliminate the ignorance. You have to be very careful here. I need a Vedantic thought to eliminate the ignorance, not to reveal the sun. Just as the clouds are there covering, remember in the Atma Bodha is there, clouds are covering the sun. I need a wind to remove the clouds, and what happens then? What should I do to see the sun? Sun is self-shining all the time. Once the clouds are removed, the sun shines by all the time. The shining sun is revealed because the obstruction is removed. So for obstructing process, I need a process, because clouds are covering. In the same way, ignorance is covering, and ignorance can only be removed through a pramana. Pramana is a means of knowledge is required to remove the ignorance. So just like discovering, so how the gravitational forces are there all the time, right? But I have to discover the gravitational through a process of learning process. So in the same way, the existence doesn't need a thought process, but to remove the ignorance, I need a thought process. Vichara. Vichara means inquiry is required. So what is that Atma has to be inquired. That means a thought process only. Without thinking you cannot inquire. So that requires a process of inquiry, which is a thought process, and scripture wants you to do things. That's why Shravanam and Mananam are there. And through that only knowledge will take place. Knowledge of what? Knowledge doesn't create the existence, knowledge only removes the ignorance, and in the process both the knowledge and ignorance get dissolved. Jalam katakare nevatu. See, like kataka nut powder, in Atma Bodha sloka is there. Says kataka. In olden days, the purification is there was a water with the dirty water. They used to put kataka nut powder, and the nut powder spreads out because of low surface tension, and it collects the dirt and becomes heavy. And in the process, dirt and the nut powder both together drop out, leaving the pure water. So just as the knowledge that I am learning, I need the jnana vasana is required. This vasana eliminates all other vasanas, including its own vasanas. Just as I need a needle to remove the thorn. In the process, needle and the thorn both are get rid of, and that is what is the process is required. So with that, we will stop at day 45 from 37 to 45 sloka. Okay, we'll do Purnamada now. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo